Welcome to TalkFCB and welcome back here to the channel, guys. And in today's video, we are going to be discussing how Barcelona can return to the top of European football, how we can win the Champions League, how we can dominate once again on the big stage. And I know many of you right now, I can tell exactly what you're doing. You're going to the comment section, you're in the middle right now of typing, sack Valverde. And you know what? I actually agree with you. But at the same time, it's more than that. This video is not just about next season, it's not just about the season after. This is about once again getting Barcelona, whether it be under this president, another president, under this coach, another coach, with different players. This is about Barcelona returning to who we really are, bringing back what we all grew to love, what we all grew to be proud of. This is about Barcelona, its true values, how we can incorporate those, improve our team, and get back to where we belong. So there's three different parts to today's video. Part number one is going to be having a moan about Valverde and the things that we're getting wrong right now that we need to correct. Part number two is going to be going back on our former Champions League glories in 2011 and in 2015, looking at those teams, looking at how we were so successful in two different ways under two different coaches. And then finally, part three is going to be looking at what our team could be in the years to come, what we can do with that team, and the best possible way to return to the top. All of those parts, it's coming right up. Let's do this. So first and foremost, guys, like I said before, for me, under Ernesto Valverde, he's obviously got his own style of play. He obviously has his own idea of how Barcelona should be, and he's won 2 league titles. But at the same time, in Europe, we have not been good enough. Not out on the field, not in terms of our mentality. This team is not ready and has not been at the level to compete at the very top of European football in the Champions League. And in order to win the Champions League, it's very, very simple to me. We have to change. Valverde has to change, whether it's him, whether it's a new coach. We have to bring something different to the table with the current group of players that we have, and we've got to add to them. We have to become more about the Barcelona that we've seen in 2011, that we've seen in previous years, that we saw in 2015. That fearless team. And I'm not saying that every single team has to play the same way. You're going to see in a minute the 2011 team and the 2015 team with two very different styles, but both very effective, and both Barcelona mentalities. Attacking football, looking to play on your strengths, looking to play the game on your own terms, being fearless, being confident. The Barcelona way is about understanding, believing, and being proud of what you're doing out on the field. Believing in your coach's methods and seeing them through until the very end. And that's not what we have right now. What we have right now is a clear divide, how we're playing, how the fans think we should be playing, how the players want to play. Everybody has their own opinion. Certainly, I'll be wanting to know yours at the end of this video. But right here and right now, we have to go back to 2011. We have to go back to 2015 because in those years, we saw two brilliant teams. First and foremost, under Pep Guardiola, in the spell that he had at the club, the most successful, of course, in our history. And then in 2015, under Luis Enrique, in his first ever Barcelona season, winning the treble with the stunning combination of Messi, Suarez, and Neymar. And for me, they are two massively unique teams. So good, so exciting to watch. They really, really got the blood flowing, didn't they? As Barcelona fans, that is what we wanted to see. Two of those teams there who captured our hearts. But I want to show you here that it's not all about, you have to play this way, you have to do this, you have to do that, you've got to be rigid, you've got to be disciplined, you've got to be sort of sticking with the Barcelona way no matter what, because there's different ways of doing it. If you're a different coach, if you want to bring in new methods, you can do that. We saw that with Pep, we saw that with Lucho. They brought different things to the team depending on the players they had. They actually built their teams around what they had, whereas Valverde, I feel, is just sticking to his principles. He's not taking into effect the players that he has, he's not using what he's got, he's just sticking rigid all the time with the same thing week in, week out. There has to be change. Because you look at the two teams here side by side. Pep Guardiola's on the left, Luis Enrique's on the right. You've got two very, very excellent goalkeepers there, ball playing in Victor Valdez and Marc-Andre ter Stegen. The centre-backs are exactly the same, Javier Mascherano and Gerard Piqué, two players who had a very, very good understanding. Mascherano and Piqué both extremely able to play at the back as well. And the full-backs for me is when it starts to get a bit different. On the left-hand side of Pep's, you got Eric Abidal and Dani Alves on the right. Dani Alves also played in Luis Enrique's team, but we also had Jordi Alba there on the left-hand side. Now, for me and Pep Guardiola's team, the fullbacks were certainly a lot more influential. Eric Abidal was the more conserved player on the left-hand side, giving David Villa the kind of freedom that he needed to really command that wing, and sort of Iniesta would drift out to the left-hand side as well, in place of Abidal when he was more withdrawn. But with Dani Alves, he was so advanced. He was a lot more as a winger. We saw him, of course, link up with Lionel Messi. He also added there support for Xavi Hernandez in that midfield, whereas under Luis Enrique, he almost played at times in a midfield role, really high on the pitch, really getting into those areas when Messi cut inside. And that's the interesting thing here. They're the same core of players, but they're used in different ways. That's what we have to see from the Barcelona coach now. You have to see him using players, getting the best of them, coming up with innovative ideas. You've got Sergio Busquets there in midfield alongside Xavi and Iniesta for Pep. That midfield there, that's where the team was based. It was all about triangles. Messi here in the false nine was dropping in, making sure that he could combine with Iniesta, with Xavi. Busquets then could find in between the lines. But with Luis Enrique's midfield, it was completely different once again. Yes, you still had Iniesta. Yes, you still had Sergio Busquets. But Rakitic was a completely different kind of player. And he was actually there used as a different kind of midfielder. When Alves went forward, he would cover in there. He'd be very disciplined. He'd give a lot of energy from that midfield. He'd be box to box. And in Luis Enrique's team, you know that a lot of the time, that midfield there, it was bypassed. There was no Xavi Hernandez. He was on the bench. He was only used in the final days of his career as an impact sub. What we were doing there with Messi, Suarez and Neymar, we based our team around the attack. And that's what I mean. You use what you have. You use the players that we have and you base your team, you base your identity around those players. With Pep, it was Iniesta, it was Busquets, it was Xavi, it was Messi dropping in to create those triangles all around the centre of the park. But with Luis Enrique, you had a formidable front three. Neymar, Suarez, Messi. It was a case of get the ball at the back, play it out the back, and then get it forward as quickly as you possibly can. Find Messi, find Suarez, find Neymar, and the midfield only helped to do that. It wasn't based around them. They only helped there in providing that front three with the balls they needed, with the space and the time they needed to really make things happen. And I think the front three of both teams were very different in their ways. You look at the front three there, Pep Guardiola's team, you've got David Villa, who'd be coming inside, leaving a lot of space out wide there for Iniesta to go and fill that gap when he could. Like I said, you got Messi dropping in there, always combining with the midfield, and also then looking for David Villa when he would become a striker and Messi would drop in. Then you got Pedro, a completely different player altogether, somebody there who is incredibly tactically disciplined. He'd be holding his width for Pep. He'd be doing everything that he needed to do there to drag out the defence, to create those spaces for Messi, for David Villa, and then combining on the right-hand side with Xavi and Dani Alves as well. And of course in that Champions League final, taking his chance when it came about. But with Luis Enrique's team, it was Neymar on the left, it was Suarez and Messi, all as a combination. They were working all together and they didn't really have any other tactical responsibilities. Neymar's job wasn't to hold his width. Messi there wasn't staying on the right. They were all interchanging. They were all able to play right across that front three, and that's why it made it so incredibly difficult to mark. But at the same time, Pep Guardiola, Luis Enrique, they saw what they had, they analysed their players, and they thought, right, this is the best method that I can come up with to make these teams tick. This is how we play our football. This is how we rise to the top. And they got their plan spot on. Every single one of those players that you see there, for their respective teams, they understood their roles. A lot of the players are the same. Over half of the team here in 2015 was the same as 2011, but they did play in a different way. Players can adapt, players can change, players can evolve, but you have to have the coach there who's given them that insight. You have to have the coach there who's willing to make them change and willing to there pressure them into doing something different. That's what we have to see now with the modern Barcelona. Which brings me swiftly on here to part 3, and that's what we have to talk about now, the new Barcelona, and effectively taking it back to the old Barcelona, reinstating those core values. And the most important thing for me is about that positional play. It's about passing, it's about moving, it's about creating opportunities, windows of opportunities out on the field by being tactically flexible. That's what we have to get back. The element there that you can have a player who can do different things, who can give you different options. We're not just stuck here in the same thing week in, week out, players playing within themselves. You've got to let players go out there and express themselves, be free, be open. And this right here is the foundations that I would lay to see Barcelona return to those roots, return to those values. And the players that you'll see out here are just a guide, because what I'm looking at here, most importantly, is the profile, the kind of players that we need to really bring back that style of play at Barcelona, that moving, that passing, that energising football. That's what you want to see out on the field every single week. Starting here with Marc-Andre ter Stegen in goal, no problem at all there. He's going to remain at Barcelona and the key player in goal for many years. Somebody who can play out the back and is perfectly within the Barcelona style. And I think the fullbacks have to be slightly different to what we've seen so far under Ernesto Valverde. I would personally like to see it go back to the way that Jordi Alba is one of the most advanced ones. He's going to be going forward. His primary focus there is adding width, adding creativity there on the left-hand side. But on the right-hand side, I think we should see something a bit more permanent in Nelson Semedo and he could be, if you like, the Abidal there of this team. He could be there, the more conservative player on that right-hand side, somebody who's certainly got the pace to get up and down. He's got good energy, but I don't think there he's got the quality of Jordi Alba in the final third, but he is better, I feel, defensively there than Jordi Alba. So what you can do there is playing a bit more withdrawn, have him being the more conservative fullback, but what you do need then is somebody on the right-hand side, because at the moment, you've got Messi there, and when Semedo plays on the right, it's too conservative, because Messi will cut in, and Semedo doesn't take advantage of that space. So what I would have here is Dembele, Semedo on the same side as a combination. They proved already in their Barcelona career that they can combine very, very well, and I think those two there, Dembele on his natural side, could cause real problems, and that's what I would do there to make the fullback areas much more balanced, much more secure defensively, and going forward, have one more advanced and one here slightly more conservative, but with Dembele ahead of him. Then the centre-backs for me do not need an awful lot of work. If Samuel Umtiti is fully fit, I believe that he would certainly be there as starting fullback, somebody who I believe would be one of the best defenders in the world at playing out of the back, also very, very good defensively. Alongside him, it could be a new sign, it could be somebody like Matthias de Ligt, maybe Clermont Longley and Samuel Umtiti could play together, and obviously right now we still do have Gerard Piqué, but looking there to the future, it remains to be seen there who's going to be playing in that right centre-back role, but I would say there not much change needed at the centre of defence, but it's in midfield here that I would start to make some major changes, not in terms of personnel specifically, but just in the attitude and the type of player we have in that midfield. I would have here, looking to the future, Frenkie de Jong in that holding midfield role, certainly combining with Arthur Melo, but it's all about that third place here and what kind of player we want in that role, because under Ernesto Valverde, we've been led to believe, and we've really been forced down the road of thinking that midfield cannot contain any genuine creativity. If you put Coutinho in this role here, we've been led to believe that Felipe Coutinho would be a liability, that he couldn't play in that kind of role, because that just shouldn't happen in the Barcelona midfield, but that is wrong. We didn't worry about creativity, we didn't worry about having somebody who wasn't necessarily good defensively when Andres Iniesta was in midfield. He only really developed that side of his game really completely under the back end of Luis Enrique. Under Pep Guardiola, Andres Iniesta was much more advanced. Like we saw earlier, he would come out in this area, he would come out there to the left-hand side, and he would play much more advanced. So under Ernesto Valverde, do not get led into thinking that we cannot have a player like Coutinho in that midfield being creative, because for me, we have to have more creativity in that midfield, because Frenkie de Jong here, Arthur Melo, they're going to control the tempo, no doubt about that. And what you could also have here is a bit more flexibility, because Frenkie de Jong can play holding, but he can also play as a bit more advanced midfielder there, and also Arthur Melo actually prefers playing in the Brazilian national team right now because he has more freedom. He wants to be able to drop in here when he can. He wants to be able to go forward a bit more when he can. He wants there a bit of responsibility in that midfield just to make his own decisions, and that's what I'm talking about. Have that freedom on the field to go out there and fully express your quality, and I think those two there in midfield would certainly give you defensive solidity, and the most important thing here about that midfield, it would be press resistant, because even if you did put Felipe Coutinho in the centre there of that midfield with those two behind him, you would be able there to advance and get around a really high press. That's what we need to have there, more technically able players in that midfield who can get the ball down and play. Simple as that. More emphasis on keeping the ball, passing the ball, moving the ball, having a midfield there that can resist a press, but also create from within. And then for me, it's the final piece of the jigsaw, that front three, and for me, it needs to be much more flexible and much more mobile there in the front three. You need Lionel Messi, I believe, right now in the stage of the career that he's at. He needs to return to his false nine position. He's somebody right now who likes to be the centre of everything. He can cause so many problems creating. He can link up here in that false nine role once again, recreating those triangles with Arthur Melo, with Frenkie de Jong. I believe those combinations there in the centre of the park could be outstanding, and Messi, I feel, could thrive in this role. But what he needs when he drops in there, and what we failed to do this season when he's played in that kind of role, is actually have runners actually making options for him. He needs to have as many options as he wants on the ball, and it can't just be your Jordi Alba. Right the way through the season, all we've seen is Jordi Alba making those runs, and that's the only option Messi has when he's on the ball. That's why I would introduce somebody on the left-hand side who would be an inside forward. Of course, the man you look to right now is Antoine Griezmann. Somebody there who can start on the left. He did used to play that in his days at Real Sociedad. He does understand that role, but of course, he's going to be our striker. But he's going to start here on that left-hand side. Messi's going to drop in, make that space for him, and he's going to exploit that. He's going to create runs in behind. He's going to understand that combination with Messi, and of course, he's somebody there who could create a lot of goals and score them and finish them off. But then, of course, you've got a gap on this left-hand side. It could be filled by Jordi Alba making that run in there, but it could also be filled by this midfielder here, if he was more creative, moving out into that space. Somebody like, for instance, Felipe Coutinho. Coutinho, somebody who's starting from a midfield position, but he can drift out wide. That's very, very different to actually starting here. Coutinho is not a winger. Coutinho is not going to beat people for pace. He's not going to be there getting into goal-scoring opportunities, but what he can do, he can start in this kind of role, and he can make his way there if he's given the opportunity, and if Griezmann vacates that room, which he would. And then, of course, it's all about Ousmane Dembele on this right-hand side. We've seen already in his Barcelona career that when he's fit, when he's firing, he can be devastating. And likewise with Griezmann, he can start on the right, but he can also make those runs. He's incredibly pacey, he can get in behind, he can certainly stretch the defence, and you can understand here what this is going to do. You've got Griezmann playing on the last man, and somebody actually, not like Suarez, but he actually has the pace to cause you problems in behind. He is going to cause the defence problems, he is going to stretch them, and exactly the same there with Ousmane Dembele. They're also tactical decoys. They're going to drag the space, they're going to drag those defenders back into the field. What you're doing then is creating all that space there between the lines for this man. You give Messi an inch, he will take a mile. Griezmann, Dembele, the advancing fullbacks as well, they will give Messi the space that he needs to be destructive. And when he's given that room, when they create that room, when you're actually here stretching the pitch, you've got players here who are genuine threats. You will see the Barcelona of old. You will see devastating football, you will see attacking football, you will see goals, you will see control here in that midfield, you will see creativity. And I just think here, looking at that Barcelona team, it looks right. It has balance, it has feel, it has the opportunity there to give all of these players the opportunity to express themselves, to really get the best out of their talent, because we're looking at here a wonderful team, a wonderful squad of players who have so much quality, but it's about finding the optimum level of those players. You've got to get the best out of them. You have to give them there the foundations on the field, the system to go out there and show what they've got, because believe me, this group of players here could take Barcelona back to the very top. And so that there, guys, is personally what I would do. If I was in control of Barcelona right now, if I could really set things out for the next few years, how they would play out, that is the way that I would do it. That's the vision that I have. That's the real Barcelona there, the core values that I fell in love with. But of course, I want to know your thoughts. What do you think of that team right there? What do you think of the structure? What do you think of the foundations? Do you believe that team there would be successful, like I've said, or do you disagree? Do you think we should try something else? Do you have another idea in mind? Let me know your thoughts in the comments down below, guys. I'm really interested here to hear your thoughts. Obviously, right now we're all speaking about Valverde. We don't really feel like Valverde is the way forward, but of course football is more than that right now. It's more than just Valverde, it's more than just this season. We are planning here for a new future, for a new Barcelona, and essentially, what does that mean to you? What team would you like to see, and what real values would you like to see there out on the pitch every single week? Let me know in the comments down below. I will see you very shortly, guys, with more videos. I hope you enjoyed this one. Thank you for watching, but until next time, as always, Visca El Barça.